Today we will see about Chapter 2, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Nelson Mandela, a name that stands for courage, sacrifice, and the spirit of freedom. This lesson is taken from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, where Mandela recalls this journey from prisoner to president and from oppression to hope. Let us go into the prose. The prose starts from his inauguration ceremony. The ceremony took place at the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria, a sandstone structure that once represented white supremacy. The extraordinary human disaster referred here comes from the long years of apartheid, while the glorious human achievement is the birth of a democratic nation. Mandela thanks the world's leaders for joining South Africa in celebrating his victory for peace, justice, and human dignity. He sets ideals of ending poverty, suffering, and discrimination, and ensuring equality for all his citizens. The inauguration ceremony was attended by his daughter Zenani, and Mr. de Klerk was the first one to be sworn as the second deputy president. And Mr. Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. Now let us look at the oral comprehension. Where did the ceremonies take place? Can you name any public buildings in India that are made of sandstone? So for the first part of the first question, the Union Buildings of Pretoria. The inauguration ceremony was held in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria, South Africa, a sandstone structure that had long been a seat of white supremacy. Today, it has become a symbol of unity and democracy. Some examples of sandstone buildings in India are the Red Fort, Rashtrapati Bhavan, and the Parliament House in New Delhi. Next question. Can you say how 10 May is an autumn day in South Africa? So, South Africa lies in the southern hemisphere and the seasons are opposite to ours. So, May, the month of May, there marks the beginning of autumn. So, 10 May is considered an autumn day in South Africa. Next question. At the beginning of his speech, Mandela mentions an extraordinary human disaster. What does this mean, and what is the glorious human achievement he speaks of at the end? He refers to the system of apartheid, the cruel racial discrimination that divided South Africans, as the extraordinary human disaster. And for the glorious human achievement he speaks of, it is the birth of a democratic, free South Africa where his people of all colors now have equal rights. Next question. Why does Mandela thank the international leaders for? So, he thanks them for joining the celebration and supporting South Africa in its long struggle for justice, peace, and human dignity. What ideals does he set out for the future of South Africa? He pledges to fight poverty, suffering, and all forms of discrimination, and to build a nation of equality and harmony. We'll go to the next part of the prose. The military generals who once would have arrested Mandela due to his rebellion now salute him and pledge their loyalty to the new democratic government, showing that change of heart. Two national anthems were sung to symbolize unity the whites sang Nkosi Sikiele e Africa, which means God bless Africa. And the blacks sang Die Stem, which is a call for Africa. The true song was Die Stem van Sood Africa, which means the call of Africa. In the early 20th century, South Africa's government was built on racial domination. But the century's end, it had become a democratic and equal. For Mandela, courage means not the absence of fear, but the victory over it. And he believes love, not hate, comes more naturally to the human heart. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. So now let us look at the comprehension. What does the military generals do? How has their attitude changed and why? They salute Mandela and pledge loyalty to the new government. But earlier they would have arrested him. Now they honor him as the president. Why were two national anthems sung? The two national anthems were sung to unite both the races. The whites sang and the blacks sang so that they were unified in the new government. The whites sang the Nkosi Sikelel' e Africa and the blacks sang Die Stem. This showed mutual respect and a new opening for a new beginning. How does Mandela describe the systems of government in his country? In the first decade and the final decade of the 20th century. In the first decade of the 20th century, white South Africans create one of the harshest systems of racial profiling and domination. And in the final decade, the cruel system was replaced by a democracy that recognized the rights of freedom of all people. Next question. What does courage mean to Mandela? Courage, he says, is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. A brave person is not the one who never feels afraid, but the one who conquers that fear. Next question. Which does he think is natural, to love or to hate? Mandela believes that love comes more naturally to the human heart than hate. So this ends oral comprehension. We'll go into the next part. So Mandela speaks of twin obligations in a man's life. One, to take care of his family, that is his parents, his wife, his children. And next, he has an obligation to take care of his people. So those are the two obligations Mandela always says about. As a boy, his freedom meant simple pleasures like running on the fields and swimming in the lakes and everything. Simple choices. And as a student, it meant all these were actually freedom for him. But later he realized true freedom meant equality and dignity for all. He says the oppressor is not free either because hatred imprisons both the oppressor and the oppressed. Real freedom exists only when everybody is liberated from fear, hatred, and prejudice. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. The oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity because both are in the same boat, because they are imprisoned in their own minds. Now let us go to the comprehension. What twin obligations does Mandela mention? The obligation is to one's family and to the people of his country. What did being free mean to Mandela as a boy and as a student? How does he contrast these transitory freedoms with the basic and honorable freedoms? As a boy, freedom meant running in the fields, swimming, and enjoying life. But as a student, it meant doing small things freely, staying out late, reading what he liked. But later he realized that these were transitory freedoms, while real freedom meant living with dignity and equality. Does Mandela think the oppressor is free? Why and why not? No. He says that both the oppressor and the oppressed are prisoners, one of hatred and one is of fear. They are both alike and both are robbed of their humanity. True freedom frees them both. So this concludes the prose. So therefore, this chapter highlights Nelson Mandela's journey from years of struggle to the triumph of freedom and equality in South Africa. It reminds us that true courage lies in overcoming fear and that lasting peace is built on forgiveness and unity. Through his life and words, Mandela inspires people to write their own stories and their own freedom. He inspires people to value freedom not for just themselves but for everyone, and to work towards a world based on justice, dignity, and mutual respect. In the next part, we will discuss about the book back questions. See the book back questions. For our first activity, we have 2 columns which have the sentences or phrases. We have to guess and match each expression with an appropriate meaning. The first one, a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. The correct answer is a beautiful coming together of various people like the colors in a rainbow. The seat of white supremacy. The center of racial superiority. The next one, be overwhelmed with a sense of history. The correct answer is feel deeply emotional, remembering and understanding all the past events that have led up to the moment. Fourth one, resilience that defies the imagination. Answer, a great ability almost unimaginable to remain unchanged by suffering, not losing hope, goodness or courage. A glimmer of humanity. Answer is a sign of human feeling, goodness, kindness, pity and justice. The last one, a twilight existence. The correct answer is half-secret life, life lived in fading light between sunset and darkness. Now let's go back to thinking about the text. So for our first question, we have, why did such large number of international leaders attend the inauguration? What does that signify? They came together to celebrate the triumph of freedom and democracy over apartheid. It was a victory for justice and human rights. Second question, what does Mandela mean when he says he is simply the sum of all those African patriots who have gone before them? The answer is, he means his success represents the collective sacrifice and struggle of thousands who fought before him. Third question, who would you agree that the depths of oppression create heights of character? How does Mandela illustrate this? So, the answer is yes. Mandela explains that the harsh oppression produced great leaders like Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, and Chief Luthuli. suffering can bring out extraordinary courage and strength. And they have also asked us for us some examples of our own. You can provide Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, who fought for the freedom. They showed that suffering and adversity often brings out the best qualities in human beings. How did Mandela's understanding of freedom change with age and experience? So as a child, he thought freedom meant personal victories and personal independence, such as running around the fields or swimming in a lake, something like that. The same for everyone. But this freedom from fear, discrimination, and injustice is what real freedom is. Next question. How did Mandela's hunger for freedom change his life? So it answers, it turned him from a quiet, family-loving man into a determined freedom fighter. He was willing to sacrifice comfort of his home for the liberty of his people. So we'll go to the next section. Thinking about language. So there are nouns inside the prose that you can see. Formation and government. They have corresponding verbs associated with it, such as form and govern. So for the following exercise, you'll be finding the noun-verb pair. Okay. So the first two things have been done for you, that is rebellion and rebel, constitution and constitute. So we need to go through the prose to find the rest of the noun-verb pairs. So we have found it as answers are discrimination and discriminate, deprivation, deprive, oppression, oppress, liberation, and liberate. These are the answers. We go to the next question. We have to read the following paragraph, and similarly we have to match up, or we have to fill in the correct noun pairs. Okay. Martin Luther King's, they have given to us the verb, the contribute. So the noun pair will be contribution. To our history, as an outstanding leader began when he came to the assistance of Rosa Parks, a seamstress who refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white passenger. In those days, American blacks were confined to positions of second-class citizenship by restrictive laws and customs. To break these laws, they would mean the verb is subjugate, so we have to use subjugation. Subjugation means bringing someone or something under your control, taking away their freedom. And humiliation, and the verb given is humiliate, by the police and legal system. Beatings, and the verb is imprison, so the noun part is imprisonment. And sometimes death awaited those who defied the system. Martin Luther King's tactics of protest involved non-violent. Resist is your verb, so the noun part is resistance to racial injustice. So these are the answers. You can pause the video to check out the answers. Now for the next section, we are going to see about definite articles with names. So we saw in the prose that Nelson Mandela has used that there were many Oliver Tambos and Walter Cicillos. So we usually don't use the in front of proper nouns. So what they have done is, in this case, there is a special condition. That is, the or and or the plural form in presence of a proper noun carries a special meaning, because we are taking qualities of that person and finding many people with them. So that is why we use the definite article, the in front of proper nouns. So for example, he has mentioned that many people like Oliver Tambo and Walter Cicillo, so many people of that kind of quality, and whose name he may not know, but they are freedom fighters. So that is what is being mentioned here. So let us go to the exercise. So we have certain sentences. So we have to find out what are they trying to say. So Mr. Singh regularly invites the Amitabh Bachchans and Shah Rukh Khans or to his parties. So the Amitabh Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khans are famous actors. They signify famous actors. So he need not mention each and every actor. So he is using a collective form as the Amitabh Bachchans, the Shah Rukh Khans. So next sentence. Many people think that Madhuri Dixit is the Madhubala of our times. So in mentioning the Madhubala of our times, they are saying that she is encompassing the charm and talent of Madhubala, who is an exterior actress. So now, Madhuri Dixit is resembling and reflecting all those charm and talent from her colleague Madhubala. So history is not only the story of the Alexanders, the Napoleons and the Hitlers, but ordinary people as well. So there are not only many famous leaders and rulers, it also has normal people in history. They are also part of history. So it may include others. So the third part is idiomatic expressions. So we have to match column A with column B. The idioms in column A with the phrases in column B. So I was not unmindful of the fact. So the answer is I had not forgotten, was aware of the fact. He was aware of the fact, but he had not forgotten it. When my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, pushed to your edge, the most you can probably do. So the answer is felt that we could not endure suffering any longer. The third one, to reassure me and keep me going. Answer is help me continue to live in hope in this very difficult situation, like giving encouragement to a person, constant encouragement. Third one, the basic and honorable freedoms of earning my keep. So earning your keep means earning enough money to live on, to be self-worth. Next is your speaking exercise, and you have to prepare a speech on a given topic. So you can use the following tips given and you can prepare your own speech. The next one is the writing exercise. So Nelson Mandela's writing is marked by balance. That means he has a sentence in which two contrasting ideas exist together in a perfect harmony. So we'll see, for example, it requires such depths of oppression. So we have to find the correct phrase to match the first half of the phrase. It requires such depths of oppression. Answer is to create such heights of character. So you have to suffer so much so that your true character comes out. Second question. Courage was not the absence of fear. It is not the absence of fear, but it is the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. These are all the sentences that are inside the prose. If people can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. So, contrasting views. I was not born with hunger to be free. I was born free. The next one, the same thing, the contrasting between present or future. Now this is present or future. The before one was contrasting with the same idea. Now we are contrasting with present or future. So it is being used for emphasis of or effect to show that how much change has happened. So you can identify which signal you have to identify which signal the contrast. The first one, it has been done. For decades, the buildings used to be full of white people. Black people were not allowed inside. But for now, it is a site. I am talking about the inauguration day. So now, it was a site of rainbow gathering of all the nations, such a colorful nation, because blacks are also mingling with whites. So he is signifying that it is now a rainbow gathering. So before it used to be like that, and now it is like this. So that is your contrasting phrases. For the second one, only moments before the highest general's saluted because he had taken the position of presidency, so they have saluted him as a president. But before, years before, they would have not saluted but arrested me. It is taken from the prose. Okay. So those are the contrasting lines. The next question. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, they would soon know the words by heart. During the inauguration, the blacks sang Daisten and the whites sang the Call of Africa. So they didn't know the lyrics of the anthem, but they would soon know it by heart. So those are the contrasting words. My country is rich in minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people. So here the contrasting word is but. So it has minerals, but the people are more valuable than those minerals. The air show was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of military loyalty towards democracy. So here too, but is the contrasting word. It was this desire for the freedom of my people that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal and turned him from a family-loving husband into a man without a hope. So here there is no definite contrasting words, but you can assume that transformed and turned into are contrasting enough for you to understand. Next one, you have to express your opinion regarding the prejudice that is faced in our country. So you can refer to your newspaper or locality or community, and you can find out what are the key points, and you can prepare your own paragraph on it. You can also follow the example of this poem, in which it is taken as a humorous point of view, and you can make this instead of a harsh or a thought-provoking speech or paragraph, you can provide it as a humorous and a meaningful sort of also. So this concludes our story section of chapter 2. Next, we will move on to the poem section. Into the poem section, we have a small section on homophones. So what are these homophones? Homophones are the same words, but when used in different places, they have different meanings. So for example, the bandage was wound around the wound. You can even pronounce it differently. Wound around the wound. So in this case, the first wound means wrapping around as a bandage. And the last one is wound, which means injury or getting hurt. The next sentence, the soldier decided to desert is desert in the desert. So the first desert with a single S is the sandy beach, and double S desert is a sweet pastry. So homophones, they may have different meanings or same meanings, but they are also pronounced differently sometimes, or they may be similar pronunciation too, but they have different meanings. So let us see the poem A Tiger in a Zoo by Leslie Norris. So what the poet wants to say in this poem is, in the first stanza, the tiger is described walking in his vivid stripes within a few steps of his cage. His movements are silent and smooth, but his anger and rage is very quiet. He is angry, but he is not able to show it outside because he is not free yet. The second stanza and third stanza, the poet imagines where the tiger should actually be. He should be in a jungle, lurking in the shadows, sliding along the long grass, hunting the deer and other small animals, and trying to hunt them near the watering holes, and roaring near villages at nights and terrorizing people. In the fourth stanza, the focus returns to the zoo, where he says the tiger is now locked in a concrete cell. He is pacing back and forth and ignoring all the spectators. And in the final stanza, it has been said that as the night falls, the tiger hears the last sounds of the humans and stares at the night sky. So the stars here symbolizes the freedom which he earns for. Because at jungle you don't have any cages and he can roam freely and he can look at stars all night. So those stars symbolizes his freedom. So now we will go to the question section. Thinking about the poem. We have to read the poem now and we have to find the words that describe the movements and actions of the tiger both in the wild and the cage. So here you can see the purple marked words are the tiger in the cage and the orange marked words are the tiger in the wild. So he is talking within his cage with vivid stripes. So those are his movements. He is walking back and forth. And pads of velvet quiet. His foot pads are so quiet because a cage is soft. And he is in a quiet rage because he is trying to control his anger. So he is just purring and growling in a low voice. Next, he is talking the length of his cage and ignoring his visitors during night time. He is again walking, but he is ignoring his visitors. So that is also a movement of the tiger in the cage. Next, we have the tiger in the wild. And what is he doing? He is lurking in the shadows, trying to hunt. And then sliding through long grass while he is trying to prepare to jump on a deer or an antelope or something. He is sliding through the long grass and near the water hole, because near the water source only the deer comes to drink water. Next, snarling at houses, the village houses. He just go by and he just roars at them or growls at them for his own amusement. Then baring his white fangs, so just showing off his teeth and showing his strength and power. Next, terrorizing the village. So these are all the words that signify the movement of the tiger both in the wild and in the cage. For the next one, find the words that describe the two places. We have to find words that describe the tiger's cage and his place in the wild. For wild, we have the long grass where he is hiding, lurking in the shadows. Next is the watering hole. He slides through the long grass near the watering hole to catch the deer. Next, the village. So he goes and snarls at the village houses. Then at houses at the jungle's end, he just bares his teeth at them. Next, for the zoo, we have the steps of his cage. That is, he is walking, stalking the steps, stalking as steps. He is walking back and forth in the cage. Then locked in a concrete cell. He is locked in a concrete cell. Then he is behind bars. You see the last one, you can see his strength is behind the bars. Now next one. Notice the use of the word repeated in the sentences. On pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. So we see the repetition of the same word. Just before now, we saw the concept of homonyms. So that is what these are. So what do these words do? So the repetition, it strengthens emphasis, it adds rhythm to the poem, and it enriches imagery and highlights nuanced meanings of the same word. So you can say brilliant eyes means bright and beautiful eyes. Then you can say brilliant stars, the twinkling quality of the stars. So that is what is represented here. It just enriches the imaginary feeling for the reader. The poet makes sure that the reader is immersed inside the poem. So next you have to read two poems, The Tiger and The Panther, and we have to answer the questions of whether zoos are necessary for us. So both questions have the similar answers, and I give you tips to how to answer. You can keep the title as whatever you want, and this is what the main topic is, whether zoos are necessary for our people. And you can add 2 or 3 points for zoos. Like you can say that it is for protection of animals, conservation of endangered animals, or for educational purposes, because we always see them in books or on TV documentaries, and we are not able to visually feel them in real life. So you can say, so those are educational. And you can say that hurt animals or any animals with any kind of diseases can be helped, and surgery can be performed on them. So zoos are necessary, like that you can mention. And you can add 2 or 3 points against zoos. For example, they are losing freedoms because they are caged all the time. And for example, if you take birds and bird sanctuaries, bird zoos, you can see that they are locked in a small cage. Birds are supposed to fly for whatever distance they feel like. Because they are supposed to be free. They have to stretch their wings and fly wherever they want to. But here they are restricted to a smaller cage. So those things you can mention. There are natural life or cruelty. Those things you can mention. Next one, you can mention alternatives like sanctuaries. Sanctuaries and national parks are different from zoos, because in zoos, everything is caged. But in sanctuaries, they are on protected lands that have an expanse of fields and forests and jungle, ponds, lakes and everything. We can visit it, certain areas, but the animals are allowed to roam free. So that is what is important. We can end this paragraph or speech with a short personal note on how you feel that zoos should be taken forth from now on, that the zoos should exist, or you can just change everything into sanctuaries, something like that. So the last part is a small poem called The Greater Cats by Victoria Sackville West. So this poem shows that although these powerful animals are trapped in cages, their spirit and memory remain wild and free. Their eyes reflect the longing for the natural world, the freedom, the space, and the beauty they knew once in the wild. Because these animals have been captured and brought back. They have not been they have not been born in zoo. So the earlier animals, they were bought from the wild and they were tamed inside the zoo. So these animals earn for that freedom to be roaming free and watching the night sky and be able to use up all the strength and freedom from it. So that is what this poem is about. So that concludes our discussion on chapter 2, the prose and the poems. So for any more information or any doubts, please contact us at Go Ask Now or leave a comment. Thank you for it. See you.